Hey guys, today we're playing Apex, and I wanted to talk about the Apex ranked matchmaking because there's quite a few videos about it and quite a lot of discussion. So I thought I would give my 2 cents on the topic. Now, I will say, I think it does a good job for the most part, especially if you are in the lower brackets. I think it's okay, and I think pubs, how they handle pubs is fine. But for ranked, there is a bit of an issue, and it's not necessarily one issue. It's a lot of issues all in one that make for not as good of an experience as it could be, and I think it'd be a little better. So I'm gonna give some of my opinions on how they could fix that, and I want to hear from you guys what you guys have to say. So the first thing I need to mention for this to make any sense is that for some reason, Apex ranked has MMR. Which basically means that two people could be the exact same rank, exact same RP, but when they ready up, they are put in two totally different buckets. And I'm not sure how many buckets there are or exactly how it works. It's proprietary EA stuff that they're never going to share with the public. But somehow it determines who's better, who's worse, based on like average damage or kills or whatever. It's more complicated than that, but you get the idea. These two people can be totally different skill levels, but the same rank, and then they'll get put in different lobbies, which, you know, at face value, you might think is fun, right? You know, everyone gets to enjoy and playing as people that are, you know, similar skill level. But kind of the whole point of ranked is that you are put against people that are the same rank as you, so that if you're better, you go up, and if you're worse, you go down. That's kind of the whole point. But here's where the issue comes in, the big issue. And that's that, say we have a player who, this game's a little laggy. Say I have a player who is in gold, right? And he is not very good, okay? It's his first, not very experienced. It's like his first real season playing ranked. He's not very good. And so he's getting slammed in gold. And so the game goes, okay, well, you know, he's not really that good. So let's put him in the easier gold lobbies. Let's kind of keep him there. You know, sometimes if he has a couple good games, we'll move him up. But for the most part, he is going to stay in these kind of mid... I'm in the back. Why am I the one getting farmed? But for the most part, he is going to stay in these kind of lower level lobbies, right? Well, that's fine. But the issue is that he is actually going to end up, over time, climbing out of platinum. Even though there are gold players who are substantially better than him. But the issue is that the gold players who are really good are going to be getting put in gold, or the higher bucket gold lobbies, and even plat lobbies. They'll get moved up, whereas he's going to get moved down. He's going to get more gold like noob gold lobbies. He's going to get some silver lobbies even, and so he's actually going to rank up to platinum. And the guy who's actually deserves to get out of gold, he's going to get out of gold, but it's going to take them a pretty similar amount of games, because the guy who's better is having to play against people who are way better, and so it's going to take him longer. And that doesn't necessarily seem that fair. But then if we keep going, we have this now gold player who's not, or this plat player who's not very good. Now he's playing against plat players who aren't very good, and he's playing against like the worst of the worst gold players, you know, because the game, he's trying to give him easy games. And after, you know, he plays 500 games, he grinds the season really hard. Now he gets into diamonds. So now he's suddenly in diamond when he is like debatably even gold skill level. And so you start seeing where the problems arise, because now they're on my left, because now we have this guy who should be in gold, silver, but he's playing against diamonds. And now that he's in diamond, he's going to end up getting put in pred lobbies every now and then. He's going to play against master players or former master players, former preds. And there's going to be people that actually deserve to be in diamonds who are getting this guy on their team. And so, understandably, they're frustrated because their teammate is a goofy goober. And it's just kind of ruining the whole thing. And this plays out the whole season, every Apex season, to varying degrees. And it's part of the reason. It's not part of the whole. It's not the whole problem. It's not a one solution or one fix. You know, the game's better. But you can see how this would cause a lot of issues. And this is a bit of a hot take also, but I don't necessarily think that it's a bad idea that there are diamond players and occasionally plat players in pred lobbies. It's like when this diamond player who's gold level ends up getting in pred, You know, I don't necessarily think that's a horrible thing because you have to, and I'll give an anecdotal example. Um, but you have to consider that there are not a lot of Pred Master players, and they are also being split between all the consoles. They're being split between Switch, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and they're also being split multiple times between regions too. So if we take Season 13, for example, this is what I'm going to use as my arguing point. There were only 2,000 people that got Masters that split. Unanimously agreed most competitive split ever. And, you know, whether you think it's good or bad, that it was that hard to get into Masters is its own argument, its own separate topic. But I would play against Plat and Diamond players pretty often. And, you know, if I wasn't playing against Plat and Diamonds, I literally would have never found a game. You know, the queues would have been hours long. And unless there was some coordinated effort to, okay, everybody get on at 5 p.m., you know, people aren't going to want to sit in hour queues. No one's going to play, right? So there just literally wouldn't have been Master and Pred games if there weren't Diamonds and Plats. But here's the thing. When the matchmaking was not doing this, not allowing people who weren't very good to get ranks they didn't deserve, the Plats and the Diamonds I was playing against were actually really freaking good because they actually deserved the rank that they were in. And so, you know, even though, because like Plat players now are probably the equivalent of like, honestly, I would say Diamond players now are probably the equivalent of like the Silver and Gold players back then. You know, so it was a lot more like actually kind of skill based. Where's Rev go? And so, you know, if you still want to make the argument that they shouldn't be in our lobbies anyways, then, you know, it is what it is. But that's kind of, I hope you kind of see the point I'm making is that I think it's fine if they're occasionally in those lobbies because, I mean, there just wouldn't be games. Another issue that I talked about yesterday is that when you have people getting ranks that they don't deserve, it makes the solo queue experience way worse because, you know, there's people that actually, you know, deserve those ranks and they're getting people on their team that don't deserve them. And then it's just making their experience worse and harder for them to climb. And so then they kind of just end up resorting to only playing with their friends because, you know, they know their friends are actually, or people that are good. Maybe they're not actually friends or not, I don't know, their relationship status. But, you know, they start playing with people that are good. And then it's like, it kind of gets back into this loop of like, you have to 3-stack or you just hit like a super unfair advantage. So I think that this only really becomes an issue though when you start like topping out in the ranks when you do get into the highest MMR like bracket, because you know gold and plat lobbies are actually pretty competitive. When I talked about it yesterday in that video, people were saying like, oh yeah, like I have gold and plat games that are like, you know, tons of squads alive in the final ring, and then you know master and pred lobbies end up being no squads alive, and there's I think 10 squads alive round 2 is pretty normal, but in the end game there's not really end games. And a lot of that is just due to the system being set up in such a way that it's just rewarding games played, and it's not really rewarding skill as much as you would think. And as an example of that, you can take just Apex Predator, for example. The people that are number 1 aren't always the people that have the highest, you know, average performance, which you would think is the best player, right? Whoever averages the best performance over a lot of games is probably the best player. Well, Rank doesn't really care. You know, if you play 10,000 games and you get, you know, 20 points a game, you're going to have 200k RP. Or, yeah, you're going to have 200k RP. But if someone won every single game, but they only played, you know, 50 games or 100 games, they're going to be nowhere close, you know, like nowhere close to 200k RP. And so the game would think that 200k RP guy is better and higher ranked, which is not how it's supposed to be. And I feel like it's unfortunately kind of a case of the game being owned by EA, because they just kind of want to milk the game for its like casual aspect and milk players of playtime, and they don't really seem to care about, you know, having like a League of Legends scenario or like a you know super competitive game. They just kind of want to be casual, people to get, you know, just to play as much as possible and not really worry about the experience of the top, you know, 1% or so. But the thing about it though is that the top 1% is the thing that gets the most like attention in terms of like, you know, views and stuff like that. So it's going to have a lot more eyeballs on it. Because, you can be like, okay, well, this only affects the top 1% of players. Well, I would argue the top 1% of players is, and I'm not saying to like cater to me, right? I'm just kind of giving like a devil's advocate argument here. Is you could make the argument that the top 1% of players is the most important group of players to at least keep satisfied. Not necessarily totally pander, but satisfy them with, for example, trying to add a little bit more skill into the top rank system. Because that is where all the eyeballs are. Like, it is the best advertising you can get is creators and pro teams playing your game, because you look at Apex at any point on Twitch, they have 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people watching. It's basically just free advertising. And if those players that are advertising your game are really upset with how it's going, then they're going to spread that sentiment to a large portion of the player base. And people are going to respect their opinion because they play the game all the time. They're just good at the game. And so it is important to keep that demographic happy, but not necessarily. You don't have to necessarily totally agree with everything they say, because hey, between me and you, a lot of pro players are morons. A lot of them are fucking morons. I'll be real. But who am I to judge? What gives me the right to judge man? I'm also just a guy trying to keep my team alive here. Who am I to judge the morality of man? But yeah, I hope you see the argument I'm trying to at least bring attention to. Oh man, I don't really know what's going on in this game. But yeah, so when you see screenshots of stuff like, for example, gold players and plat players being in pred games, with people throwing a huge fit, I don't necessarily think that's really an issue. I think it's just an easy thing to be like, look, there's plats in pred games, but if you really kind of dig into it, I don't necessarily think that it's necessarily just inherently bad. I don't know. Maybe people don't agree with my season 13 example, but and I'm not trying to be like elitist either. Be like, oh, I deserve this rank. People don't deserve it. Gatekeep and girl boss and all that. I don't really care about that. I'm just saying, like, I want the game to be as good as possible. And I don't necessarily want it to like pander to one audience, but I just want it to be a good game. It to be the best game it can be, because I have a lot of fun playing. I think this game's really freaking fun, so I think having rank be more sweaty would really help. And in terms of like possible solutions, I guess I should talk about that instead of just complaining. The first thing I would recommend doing is just making it so that in Master Plus, there is infinitely scaling entry cost. So if you have 100,000 RP in Masters, you're going to have a higher entry cost than somebody who has 10,000 RP in Masters. And that way, people don't just kind of run away with the lead, It's not just like, okay, whoever plays the most games. Then it kind of becomes like, you have to still play a lot. Like, you have to put in some hours. But, if you're better than somebody, it will be evident in the ranks. And then also just removing hidden MMR. I think that's removing MMR is a pretty obvious one. I don't really think that has any place in ranks. At least in like Platinum Plus. If you want to put some MMR in like Bronze and Silver and Gold to kind of help with the smurfing thing and make it easier to kind of ease into ranked, I could see that argument. But there being MMR in like Diamond and Master, and I don't know really if it's in Masters, but there being MMR in Diamond, especially like early in the season, makes literally no sense whatsoever. He can make Portal and res me. Yeah, he's going to pull me. Because I can give you an example of, and this is kind of how I kind of got clued into the fact ranked had MMR in the first place, is because, am I even resable here? Oh yeah, I am. You can tap. You got tap again. Actually, let me block first. Okay, tap. So early in the season, Kian and I are pretty good at ranked, right? And pretty often, we'll have a pretty high average RP per game compared to other pro players, right? I mean, it's all I freaking do, okay? They play scrims all day and grind mechanics, and I play ranked, okay? I'm really good at it. So we'll have a pretty high average RP per game, and we'll do a lot better than a lot of the other pro players. And so our MMR will get just absolutely juiced, right? Because we'll be averaging like That's just an example. It changes season to season, but we'll be averaging 180 points a game or something like that. And the other pro players will be averaging 90 or 100, and they're usually not taking it as serious as we are because we just enjoy playing ranked more than they do. But I'll be like in queue in diamonds, and I'll be looking around, and Hal will be in a queue, he'll be diamonds. All these other pro players, they're in queue, they're in diamonds, and we'll be getting skipped in queue. Like I can see them in their queue, and then they'll go into a game and we won't. And it's because we're in like the bracket, like the higher diamond bracket, and it's trying to like not put us with noobs. But early in the season, it just has such a hard time like determining skill that we are just getting perma skipped. And it's really frustrating because we're trying to do like, pred grinds, and we're, I don't mind the game trying to find like a better lobby, that's fine. But it's like, really, like, how is getting a game and we're like getting skipped? Like, that doesn't really, I have like a 3-hour queue time, like, okay, that seems a little ridiculous. There's only one guy? Like, it seems a little ridiculous. I don't know. And smaller versions of that, are going to happen with the system, but it's just like, that's kind of an example of how it can be really dumb. And it's really bad too, and it would happen like most splits. And also, it's also kind of frustrating because like some people just have, I don't know what actually determines skill or determines what the game thinks is good or not. But you might have like a play style that is better for like farming MMR, And also, they also use, which can make it like really annoying because like if you play more aggressive, you take more damage. Maybe you're gonna have lower MMR than somebody who just farms with a G7. That doesn't really seem fair. And so you get harder games because of your playstyle? Like, it doesn't really seem like... Oh. Got licked by someone else. Oh, frick. Am I dead? For the rescue. Homie to the rescue. Yeah, it's just kind of weird how that works. Alright, GG's. Apparently we won. I got carried, as per usual. But, yeah, let me know what you think about MMR, about matchmaking, if you think there's any problems with it. Curious to hear your thoughts. Adios.